Well, the path to the White House remains open for both men, and just a few thousand votes in just a handful of states could prove decisive. Our economics editor has been crunching the data and he joins us now. So, Ed, take us through how you see the wider picture emerging.
I will do, Julia. Actually, you were reading out that tweet from Donald Trump about the pollsters getting it wrong. And before we get onto the kind of map itself, I want to show you the state of play. Let's just remind ourselves of this, the big story. You know, certainly we don't know who's necessarily going to be in the White House, but we do know that those polls confidently predicting that Joe Biden was going to win, potentially with a landslide, weren't necessarily right. And when you look at the polls versus reality, so the lighter one of the polls and this one is the reality, for various different states, you can see in Texas, the polls were expecting what was going to be a kind of low result for Donald Trump, I should say. These are Republican results. So they were predicting low results for Donald Trump. And in the end, he outperformed. He outperformed in Texas. He outperformed in Ohio. He outperformed the polls in Minnesota, in Iowa, in Florida as well. Remember, Florida was one of those early results that came in, and we saw that it was going Donald Trump's way. When you looked at what was happening in Miami-Dade, certainly going Donald Trump's way. So there you can see one thing we do know. The polls once again got it dramatically wrong. And when we look at the big picture of where we are, well, let's just remind ourselves, still very tight when you look across the countries. Most of these states have now been declared. It's safe to say Alaska is going to go Republican, but Joe Biden ahead in Nevada, but still lots of votes to be counted there. Ahead in Arizona too, but you know, still it looks like there were some thoughts that they were close to the end of the counting there, but actually there's still a fair few to go there. And when you come across here, I mean, we'll get to these Rust Belt states in a moment, but Georgia and North Carolina looking like they're leaning towards Donald Trump, particularly North Carolina. But still here, it was always going to come down to these states, wasn't it? You know, even unless Joe Biden was able to pick up Florida and some of these states, it was going to look like it would come down to Wisconsin, Michigan and Pennsylvania. And when you look at those results right now, what I'll do is I'll go to our hypothetical map and we can try to imagine how things might change if, for instance, Joe Biden was to win here. So if he was to win in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, looks tighter in Pennsylvania, but let's just imagine he is ahead in Wisconsin and in Michigan, then that puts him over the line. And remember, this is all about 270 electoral college votes. Whoever gets to 270 has won in the electoral college, regardless of the overall figures, which right now are extraordinary. The number of total votes across the country have been more than in any previous election. But what matters, as I say, is getting over that line. If Joe Biden, as I say, wins in these states, then he is over the line. But that's not a given. And it's not a given necessarily that he's going to hold on to these states. It's not a given that Donald Trump is going to win in Georgia. And I want to just take you to that for a moment, just to show there is still some doubt here. It is still pretty tight. You'd say it's likely to go for Donald Trump in Georgia, but let's just have a look at what's going on there. So here you can see, there he is, 50.3%. But I want you to note the difference here. It's about 80 or so thousand votes in it between these two candidates. 80,000 votes, OK? So remember that. And now let's zoom into Atlanta, so Fulton County. OK, here we have it. This is kind of Atlanta. This is your metropolitan centre for Georgia. And this is typically very Democrat, and it is very much going Biden, more than it went for Clinton last time around, more than it went for Hillary Clinton. But here's the thing, 95% of the votes counted. Still, maybe kind of, you're talking about, what is that, about kind of 30,000, 40,000, maybe a little bit more yet to come. And then how about DeKalb? So this is the suburbs of Georgia. So all still around that kind of area here, Atlanta, Georgia, and the suburbs. Again, strongly going for Biden. He has won with the suburban voters around here, at least. And around, you're talking, you know, it's tens of thousands of votes yet to come in here as well. Add it all up. And that is why, even though it looks like Donald Trump is very much in the lead in a state like Georgia, no one is quite as confident as you might have thought. And so we go back to this again. Still too close to call. Certainly leaning for Joe Biden when you look at what's happening in these states here, like Wisconsin, like Michigan, certainly, and we can talk about Michigan a little bit later on, but still question marks about places like Georgia, question marks about places like Arizona and Nevada, all of which suggest it's going down to the line. But one thing I will tell you, OK, if you take all of the states and just give the result to whoever's ahead at the moment. I know it's not very scientific, but let's just do that thought experiment. We'll give those results, we'll give the Electoral College votes to whoever is ahead in each of these states. So Joe Biden gets Nevada, Arizona, Minnesota he's already got as well, Wisconsin, Michigan. Donald Trump gets Pennsylvania, he's ahead there at the moment, and Georgia we saw a second ago, North Carolina. Have a look at this, you might have spotted it already. Joe Biden just squeaks it. It would be the narrowest Electoral College vote results since 2000. I think possibly even more narrow than that, because I think that was 271. It would be absolutely extraordinary, all of which explains why, even if we do get what seems like a result tonight, tomorrow, the next few days, this probably is going to be discussed in the courts for quite some time. Still, let's just recap and look at where we actually are in terms of the results that we have so far. Have a look at our virtual White House over here. There you can see it. It's beautiful, rather beautiful day there, isn't it, at the moment? And what you can see is those bars stretching towards the White House, the finish line, which is 270 Electoral College votes. Over the course of the past 24 hours, we've seen those bars get closer and closer, but there is no definitive result yet. We are still waiting on a few critical states to get the numbers from them.